This is a 2025 Yamaha MT07, and folks, they finally listened to us riders when we said we want a better MT07. Yamaha has addressed pretty much all of the old concerns and made a really potent little motorcycle here. Now, in today's video, we're going to cover all the details of this bike, the specs, the ergonomics, all the little things that make it tick, and some of the stuff you might not see in other reviews. Of course, I did want to mention this is a giveaway bike. March 28th is the last day you have to get entered. This is a short sweepstakes. Make sure you head over to Yamaha.com and become a member right now to lock in your chances. We're giving away a bike every single month this riding season, so it's going to be a big year. Make sure you head over to the website and get your chances to win a free motorcycle starting with this Yamaha MT07. Now, let's go over some of those specs and let's understand a little bit more about this machine. Okay, so the MT07 is starting off at $85.99 MSRP. That's up about $400 more than the previous model, and you do get a substantially better motorcycle that is actually lighter as well too. This bike's curb weight is 403 pounds wet and ready to ride, which is pretty impressive given that many of the bikes it competes against are 40 to 50 pounds heavier than that. The MT07's always had this peppy, fun, playful, lightweight nature to it, and that carries over on this model. If you guys saw my first ride and review earlier this week, you'd know that as well. And we actually have a track day review coming up tomorrow, and so you'll see even more of how much better this motorcycle handles, which was certainly one of the weak spots it used to have. The engine is unchanged, and in my opinion, that is no bad thing. This is the same 689cc CP2 motor. That's a 270-degree parallel twin engine, making about 75 horsepower and 50 foot-pounds of torque. It was amazing when it came out in 2013, and guess what? It's still pretty amazing in this package today. With tight, snappy gearing and a lightweight and a short wheelbase, this makes plenty of power and punch and has a ton of character out of that exhaust. The MT07 features a 3.7-gallon fuel tank, which actually is very impressive given its 57 mpg claimed. This motorcycle easily does over 150 miles to a tank, making it actually pretty worthy for a little weekend touring bike. The MT07 has a very approachable 31.7-inch seat height, but we firmly consider this motorcycle in the beginner plus category. We don't really think this should be everybody's first motorcycle. This is certainly a very powerful bike if you're coming on to power sports from no experience prior, but if maybe you've ridden some dirt bikes in the past, you've got a little bit of manual car experience, and you're a little bit more responsible, maybe in that 25 plus age bracket, the MT07 can be purchased as a new beginner friendly motorcycle, but we still think it's probably best reserved for only those special cases. The reason being is that it's just a torquey, powerful bike, and it can get away from you if you're not careful. The Yamaha MT07 now ships with the Dunlop Q5A Sport Touring tire. That's a pretty good and respectable set of rubber on this machine, but it used to ship with the Michelin Road 5s, which we think is a little bit more superior. So slight downgrade in OEM rubber, but if you ride this motorcycle the way it's meant to be ridden, you'll be swapping out rubber in the first 5,000 or 6,000 miles of ownership anyways. One of the big changes in this motorcycle was an ergonomics update. Let's swing a leg over this machine and talk through what it feels like. Swinging a leg over the MT07, I'm about 5'11", 170 pounds-ish. We'll put the kickstand up. You'll notice that I can very firmly place both my feet flat on the ground. I have a slight bend in my legs. This motorcycle is very narrow through the gas tank. They actually narrowed this up a little bit for this generation. And because it only weighs 403 pounds, I feel like I have a lot of command over this machine. Put my feet up on the pegs here on the rear brake. Pretty standard seating position. You can certainly ride this motorcycle nice and comfort, nice and upright. They've now swept the bars back a lot towards you. These are actually quite a few inches back further towards you, and this is something that Yamaha is doing across their range. The new MT09 is actually a little bit more lean forward, a little bit more sporty. They seem to have done a similar thing with the MT07, probably making them all a little bit more competent to ride on road, a little bit less of that hooligan supermoto energy and more of just a refined, good, normal motorcycle. That's going to be the theme you're going to see in today's video. It's a very well-refined package and just functions like a normal motorcycle should. So really comfortable to sit on this bike, really nice to stand on it like this, no problems at all. I think riders anywhere from 5'7" to maybe 6'2", 6'3" can pretty comfortably fit on this machine. If you are on the heavier side, I would definitely recommend getting a different shock. You're going to blow through the preload pretty quickly on this, even though this is a revised shock. Now, let's talk through some of the fun stuff, the changes that Yamaha made on this machine that make it so much better. Let's work our way front to back on the Yamaha MT07. Let's start by talking about the wheels first. These are spin-forged aluminum wheels. That's a different type of manufacturing process that makes the wheels lighter but still just as strong as they used to be. That's less rotating mass, which you will feel a lot when you ride this motorcycle. Again, this is a lightweight, fun, peppy bike, and Yamaha really went to the effort to make it that fun, lightweight bike in the category. Looking here at the braking hardware, we now have radial mounted brakes on this bike. That is a big upgrade over the old MT07. It used to have the axial mounted calipers. Radial mounted calipers just kind of sit a little bit tighter, sit against the road a little bit better, and are just going to work better as well. Master cylinder as well is a little bit different. It looks like a different unit than it used to be. Adjustable brake lever up at the top as well. But the big talking point on this bike is the fact that you now have a 41mm upside down KYB fork. This is way better hardware than we used to come on the MT07. My biggest complaint with that bike used to be its wallowy front end. Even on street pace, not even pushing the motorcycle, it felt unrefined, uncontrolled, and just kind of wallowed. Just didn't feel like it ever really settled. This fork, completely different. Night and day difference on this fork. And there's other changes as well as we work back that see that all work in tandem to make this motorcycle's handling so much better than it used to be. Here in the center of the machine, the star of the show, the 689cc CP2 motor, completely unchanged. I could not find one single thing that was actually different on the engine block. I have a lot of familiarity with these. I've given away, I think, 4 different CP2 platformed motorcycles, so I'm pretty familiar with them. It's kind of cool how it has some of these flanges and tabs on it, because you know that Yamaha cross-platforms this engine in a lot of different other bikes, the R7 and the Tenere 700 specifically, and the Tracer 7 for all you Euro boys out there. We don't get that bike here in America, but you guys get it out there in Europe. So this is the same engine. It's tried and true, it's bulletproof, it's a great motor. You really should have no complaints about this thing. And if you're saying, but yeah, and the GSX-8R makes more peak power, this thing, for some reason, it just feels like it makes way more torque than everything else in the category. I can't explain it. If you've ridden a CP2, you understand. That's why they call these bikes the master of torque. They're awesome. The big thing I wanted to mention here as well is the frame. Updated, revised, changed, more rigid, provides less flexibility, less of that wallowing, working in tandem with that new front suspension. This motorcycle feels awesome. It is a night and day difference over what it used to be. Very big changes here. Also on top over here, you have these air box holes. So Yamaha's been doing this interesting thing because they are the tuning fork company. After all, they understand a lot about musical instruments, and I like to think that all the different oscillations and factors in a motorcycle make it a bit of a musical instrument, but they've been putting these induction scoops, these air holes near the gas tank and near the air scoops in the MT09 and now the MT07, giving you more of that auditory sensation when you get on the gas. You guys saw in my first ride and review, when you get on the gas on this bike, it feels awesome. You can really hear that honk. It is super satisfying to use, and I really prefer that instead of a super loud exhaust. And honestly, nowadays with emissions and noise regulations, unless you're Ducati for some reason, you can't make a motorcycle as loud as they used to be. So seeing those tiny scoops in the gas tank is pretty sweet. It's a great touch to make this motorcycle a little bit louder and prouder. Moving on to the rear of the MT07 here, we have these LED blade style indicators. Thank God we don't have those pumpkin style indicators anymore. You also see a new swing arm. Yamaha's revised the swing arm in this machine, and they put a new rear shock on this that has rebound adjustability, whereas the old one just had preload adjustability, and it's a little bit more stiff as well. So you guys see the theme here, right? New swing arm, new shock, more rigid frame, and better front suspension has basically fixed all the handling woes that this model used to have from the factory. The old MT07 just really was pretty inexcusable with the way that it handled, and I can safely tell you now that that is no longer the case. But it doesn't end there. Let's look at some of the stranger features on this bike. Now, one of the big talking points on this bike is, of course, the new electronics that are on it. So over here on the left-hand side of the handlebar, you have this pretty crazy new switch cluster, the turn signals, the indicator switch. Oh my God, I really don't like them, I'm not gonna lie. It's got this new self-canceling feature. They just feel weird to use. It's one of those things where I'm like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Don't understand why they did that. The bike now features 3 modes. You got Sport, Street, and Custom, which is pretty sweet. And the big talking point for me is that this motorcycle now does not feature a cable throttle. It was one of my favorite things on the old MT07s. It was a little old school, a little raw. It had that cable throttle. It just had this beautiful snap to it, just this instant feedback. And now it's a little bit more neutered. Are you gonna notice that as much? Probably not, but it's something to keep in mind. Having a chip-controlled throttle allows this motorcycle to have some interesting new features. Key among them is the ability to have this motorcycle in the YAMT, the automatic configuration, the automatic transmission this motorcycle can come with. Now, it comes with cruise control in the automatic configuration, but you can't get cruise control in the manual configuration. This is the manual edition of the bike. I was not going to give away an automatic motorcycle to you guys, of course. I really think cruise control should have just come standard on this motorcycle. Maybe Yamaha could not make the price work under $9,000 to put the cruise control module on here. I personally think that they could have and they should have, because that would have made this motorcycle have a killer feature among its competitors like the GSX 8R and the Trident 660. That would have made this motorcycle leaps and bounds ahead of those machines having a little cruise control module. This MT07 also has the newer 5-inch TFT display. It looks pretty good. It changes from white background to black background depending on if you're night or day. You can also change some of the display functions on there. It's not my most favorite system. I would rate it more like a 6 out of 10. I still think the Kawasaki system is the gold standard. It looks beautiful, runs beautiful, and also the BMW systems, in my opinion, are also some of the flashiest, nicest, smoothest running TFTs I have seen. Let's poke around a little bit more on this model. Underneath the seat, it's all tidy. You just hit the key down here, open that up, it unlatches, remove that. You get a good amount of space. You can definitely fit a wallet or, insurance papers or anything else you want back there. To get access to underneath this seat, you got to pop off these push pins and then do a couple bolts. Let's do that really quick. 2 more bolts undoes the seat and you can get access to the battery back there. Fuse box nicely labeled. Everything's nice and neat on a Japanese machine. You love to see it. One thing to note, no add-on for spools back here on the swing arm. If you want to get this bike up on a paddock stand or a rear stand, you're going to have to use the little rubber feet. Not a big deal, but something to note if you wanted to add on the little spools that most people like to do on their motorcycles. One thing I did want to point out on the engine that is actually newer is the slip assist clutch. That is a new feature on the MT07. Just helps with downshifts, smooth things out a little bit, and makes the motorcycle just feel a little bit better when you are practicing those smoother downshifts. One thing to note here as well is, much like the MT09, you have a very cavernous kind of space right here in between where the clutch basket is and the top of the frame here. That's probably due to packaging for cross-platforming the bike. As I mentioned, you have these sort of dead tabs right here on the engine, on this clutch cover right here. And it's probably due to the fact that this motorcycle is used in a lot of different other bikes. One of my other favorite things about the MT07 is just how accessible everything is. You see the oil filter is right there in front of us. The exhaust looks a little bit different, by the way. You have this new routing for this thing right here into the catalytic converter back there. Single piece, as it always was, so if you do want to make this motorcycle louder with some sort of pipe, you're going to have to do a full system and a flash to get it running correctly. Luckily, these CP2s have been around for a very long time, and so people know how to do that, and will be able to help you to do that as well. So yeah, very easy to work on. You can access the whole engine, very, very simple, and yeah, with the engine, it's kind of like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed this look on the 2025 MT07. We're going to be making a lot of content with this machine while we have it. Remember, March 28th is the very last day to enter for this sweepstakes. It's tight, it's short. We're trying to keep things fun this year. We're doing a bike every single month this riding season, so make sure you enter on YamiDo.co for your best chance to win this machine. If you have any questions, leave me a comment down below. I'm also always on our Discord server. If you join over on YamiDo.co, you can ask me any sort of question you want, not just about the MT07, but anything else you might have on your motorcycling mind. Thanks so much for checking out today's video. I truly do appreciate it. I'll catch you in the next one. See you later.